what's important is not what happens, but it's the process behind it and how you deal with what happens. It sounds like a quote. Is that what happens to you? Is how you deal with what happens? But it's really that, right? It's this outlined SOP based process that you have. Like if that happens. So like when that happened to me this weekend and I was assessing what was happening. I'm going back to my memory banks that are probably telling me some story. Like this is what's happened in the past. And then, oh, it's 2 websites. That means it's not. Before we jump into this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, hit that notification bell if you're on YouTube, and after a listen, please give us a thumbs up, like, and share, if we've earned it. With your help, we can reach more people and deliver these valuable From the Trenches lessons to those that need it. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Builders. Today, it is a solo episode, and that means you just got me today. It's actually interesting. I ebb and flow when it comes to guests coming out of the podcast and how many we have lined up. And I think early in the year we had gotten to 3 months deep. So we paused. I put some things in place to delay and pause things. And then we got all the way down to 0. And there was 1 week that I had, the weekend before I was creating a solo podcast or something. I had nothing else in line. So I had no choice. This time I had a choice. But the other thing I'm trying to do is make sure that every 4 to 5 weeks, once a month, 4 to 5 weeks, that I have a solo podcast because I like doing these. Hopefully they're informative. Hopefully you like them. But now we have, we're coming in a couple months. We're a month and a half, 2 months deep. So I have to slot them in. So I just count 4. We did 4. Let's do a solo, which is good too. Yeah, I don't, I'm trying not to go too deep though. I want to control that because even though probably most of our podcasts are timeless, probably evergreen, to mostly anyway. It's still good to things to be a little more current when we're talking. That's just, I think that's a better way to approach it. Anyway, so today's topic is actually interesting. I actually had a different idea going into this morning. I'm recording this on a weekend. Going into this morning, I had this idea. I was going to talk about marketing, but what I wanted to do and kind of what's going on in my business, and which is good too. But at the same time, I want to talk more about kind of my wheelhouse, what I kind of deliver, right? Let's say as an agency, web design development, and also the things I talk to, which is building teams and outsourcing, that type of stuff. That's pretty much what we do, and then we got our products too, and can talk about WordPress all day long. But this morning, so I had this idea. I was going to go into the morning. I'm like, I'm going to tell you, kind of give you an update of what I'm doing with, on the marketing side of things. If you follow what I do and stuff, you'll have noted at some point that, this summer specifically, a lot of projects had been delayed and things that have been happening. And how I'm counteracting that would have been the episode and how that's going, how I'm ramping up things in the marketing side, and it's all good. But then I had a fire this weekend. This is actually Sunday. I'm doing this, Saturday morning. So Saturday morning, I do a little work, as I joke with people. I work on the weekends, just not as much, just not quite as much as during the week, but I do slide in some work along with doing stuff around the house. But this Saturday, so I've been trying to write an article every Saturday morning, and it's nice because I don't burn out because I'm always doing all kinds of different things, and writing's a completely different part of the brain than what I do during the week. So to spend an hour or 2 hours doing that type of thing in the morning on a Saturday works out good for my blog. So I'm I posted a blog. I wrote and posted a blog on Saturday morning. This one was on unified web design. I rotate every week. It's one of our 3 sites we post content on. It doesn't include the builders because that generates its own content. But so unified, and then I go to unified plugins, and then back to mattlevinhagen.com, and then back to unified web. That's my whole thing. And I have about 3 years worth of content literally planned. So every week I just sit down. Okay, this is the next topic. I digress. So anyway, I'm working, and then I noticed for some reason I went to one of my websites. I was checking something out. It wasn't even unified web design. I was working fine, and I couldn't load it. That's weird. So is it something on my end? What's going on? And then I noticed another one of my sites had kind of the same problem. So I started to what's going on? That's what you do. So you're a business owner and you go to your website and it doesn't load. First thing that's going to come to your mind is what's going on? Is this temporary? Is it a hiccup? But if you're a web developer, and our wheelhouse is not only just doing custom stuff, but it's maintenance. It's a big part of what we do. There's a lot of other things going on in my head. It could be that simple little thing. It could be just that website, or it could be a broader server problem or whatever. So it could go in a lot of different directions in my brain because I've seen a lot of things play out. So I'm also have a lot of plans, right? And so I have a whole day of to-dos around the house. I'm actually fixing up our fence at the moment in our backyard. Got a cedar fence that I built like 20 years ago that needed some upgrades this year. Some reinforcements, new gate. I just installed a new gate last weekend. A wooden gate, 6-foot wooden gate. It's beautiful. But I had a problem with the locking mechanism and the latch, so I had to replace that. So I had that on the docket for the afternoon, among other things. And so I had these things I was going to do, and I was committed to doing it. And so one of the things I assess, is this a client site or is this Matt's site? And how important is the sites that are having problems? So this is kind of the prioritization part of me is in weighing how critical something is. And the 2 sites that were going down was Unified Plugins and mattlevinhagen.com. It wasn't unifiedwebdesign.com. That was loading, and most of the time the front ends of those 2 were loading. It's not. We'll be all right. It's a Saturday. Went about my business, but it's bugging me. It's bugging me. It's on my mind that I'm going to have to figure this out. And it was sometime in the afternoon, I finally sat down for a bit and looked to see if it was still having a problem. Now, what could have happened is I went back and they were fine. Maybe it was a cache problem or something weird that was just temporary. Now, because it was 2 websites, though, what is that telling me? That's telling me that's not going to happen. If it's one website, then you say, okay, somebody's attacking that website or there's a critical error on that website. There's something happening. I wasn't seeing critical errors. They just weren't loading. And so one of the things that I do is, so basically we have Liquid Web for a web host. I've been with Liquid Web for literally 16, 17 years, something like that. In fact, I bumped into them on Twitter one time and they sent me free t-shirts because I'd been with them so long. So I'm with Liquid Web. Liquid Web is pretty much my go-to. Even when for clients, I would recommend going to Liquid Web or Nexus. Nexus is actually owned by Liquid Web. There were a separate company, separate brand, like Liquid Web is the parent brand. Nexus is what was nice about Nexus, or what is nice about Nexus, because we have sites there, clients there, is it's focused on WordPress and WordPress environments and stuff. So tuned for that in WooCommerce. But they're merging now. So they're merging together. So it's a beautiful thing. I lucked out. But anyway, so Liquid Web is the server, and we have 4 sites that we manage internally. Our 4 sites. So we have unifiedwebdesign.com, we have unifiedplugins.com, we have thebuilders.fm, you might be familiar with that, and then mattlevenhagen.com, which is my personal site, personal brand blog, and where I have a little lead magnet for related outsourcing, if you're interested. And so those are my 4 sites. Obviously, the most important site out of all 4 of those sites is unifiedwebdesign.com right now. So right now, that's going to be the one I care the most about. So if I would have been seeing those problems with that particular site, then it would have been drop everything. But it was the other satellite sites that do impact business and traffic and all that stuff. But it's a Saturday. I got other things I got to do. It's not a client site. Matt will delay a few hours. I'm not going to do that for you, though. If you're my client or partner, I would not do that for you unless, obviously there's situations where I'm not home or like at a wedding or something. I don't go to weddings too often at this age, but you know what I mean. Then I would have to have my laptop with me and figure it out. Hopefully my team's around. Anyway, I digress again. I do that a lot. So that's the picture. That's the background, right? So the first thing I'm going to do, though, when I realize I'm looking at it's multiple sites, even if I think maybe I can figure it out, I'm going to start doing some of my own troubleshooting. I'm going to pull in Liquid Web support. Now, I have a dedicated cloud server with them. I pay roughly $300 a month, but that also includes a special security package. We are locked down. That is not a challenge for you hackers out there. But I have I have a decent package with a decent server, but it's managed, so they are there to help. Nexus is the same way. So even though I, as the web developer and owner of my sites, have access to the server, I can do server stuff. Actually, this is WHM cPanel. Nexus is not. I don't know how they're doing that. I don't know if they're going to keep their dashboard now. Doesn't matter. But I have WHM cPanel. cPanel is like per website, the kind of how you manage the website in that environment. And then you have WHM, which is kind of this overarching management system for the server itself. And you could do a lot of stuff in there. So there's, so I can do all that stuff, but I like having the Liquid Web team there to help me start troubleshooting on the server side. That allows me to go and see if I can figure things out on the website itself. See if I can log in, which I wasn't able to. I was starting to have trouble getting into WP admin. It was not looking great. But again, I'm doing other things. So I think actually I did that. I took a peek. It was still, I opened up a Liquid Web ticket, probably was doing some other things around the house. And then finally I'm like, I really got to solve this. Oh, so what else starts happening? So this is about 11, 12 o'clock in the morning when I finished that article, and I started realizing I couldn't get access to these sites. And then I realized I looked at my email and I'm getting alerts. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can get alerts and out there. But one of the services I use is called Pingdom, Pingdom. And basically any important sites that we're managing, I have it set up in Pingdom where it will ping me on how you can configure it however you want. But basically I have it like set about 5 minutes for our sites. So every 5 minutes it's going to ping and see if the site's up or down and alert me that, whatever site it is down. And then it can give me a full report. Like, where was that? Was it Singapore? Is it Miami? Where is it? And so then, of course, you go there and you see what's going on. We actually have that also pinging. It's one of the few things in Slack, I don't have a lot of alerts or notifications going into Slack because it's too overwhelming. But this actually has its own dedicated channel. So all of my team will know if one of my sites are down. It's something we implemented this past year, actually, because I'm like, we just need to know, like we can't wake up and there's a site down, or if we're managing we want to be the first people to know what's going on. And because I have an overnight team, they might even fix it before I wake up. It's a beautiful thing. So we're getting alerts. I get my email alerts in Slack. I'm getting alerts. Unified website or unifiedplugins.com is down. 5 minutes later, it's up. MattLevenhagen.com is down. 5 minutes later, it's up. Sometimes it's a little longer. Sometimes, it's wild. So I'm like, okay, this is not good. And then I even checked, like, there's sites out there that you can check. Is my website down? And it was down. And I wanted to be thorough. I wanted to be sure what was going on here. I couldn't get into WP admin, so I was having a hard time, even getting in there to see. It probably wasn't going to be a hack because it was multiple sites. It was probably going to be server side, but I'm still going to try to get in, see what's going on. And then the initial reaction, all right, the initial thing that triggers in Matt's brain and my team's brain, or any web dev team that's going to get these notifications and realize their site's down, is to troubleshoot it and bring in who you're going to bring in. Having really good web host support is important. That's why it is very important which web host you go with. And the reason I'm with LW is because over the years, they have had some of the best support I've experienced. And maybe there's other people out there that don't agree. But between their support and me knowing what I know to get in there as well, it's fine. They're responsive, whatever, they're helpful. And this was happening on a weekend. So that's important too. So I looped in the web host, did my own troubleshooting. And what happens is Liquid Web, actually, as I'm doing this stuff in between things, sends me a reply and says, hey, you have very little memory left. Now, I have 400 gigs of memory on my servers, right? 400 gigs. And most of my sites are pretty small. But I have more accounts than 4. I have websites we've launched and let go, or that I'd set up at some point and let go, and things like that. But very few of our sites are very big. So I'm looking at let's see here. I'm actually on my computer right now. And I'm just going to look up like one of my bigger ones. I'm not going to include stage demos. Let's see. My biggest site right now, after I did the purge, which we'll talk about, is about 5 gig. That's pretty big for one of our sites. And that's actually, for whatever reason, that's unified plugins. I don't know. That seems a little high still. But most of them are, 3, 2. Unified web design, which is like our most important website, is about 2 gig. Right? Yeah. That's crazy, right? It's like our most important site. 2 gig. Now, let me remind you, we have 4 active sites, but I do have a 5th site, and I'll tell you about that in a second. And 400 gigs should be, we should be in pretty good shape. right? But there is that fifth site. So there's a site, we have a staging site. Now, with web hosts like Nexus or other clients or partners we work with, there's often, like, if, for example, we work with an agency that there's, I don't know, 100, 150 sites on WP Engine, which is another great web host. Actually, I would recommend that one as well. So, but they have their own staging environments or dev environments. It's all on that same server. Nexus, same thing. We can create a staging and then other dev environments as we need them on that server. But there's a lot of times where we need kind of overflow, or we just need another place to do messy work, or there's those environments don't exist naturally, and so a lot of different reasons. But I have a website called stagedemos.com, which is a non-branded domain that I use for clients and partners and everything. So, and it's important that it's non-branded because we do a lot of white labeled work. So that's a whole nother story. But Stage Demos is more like 160 gig at this point. That's probably a little high. We have to periodically go through there and purge older installs and stuff that we don't need anymore. But for the most part, that's normal. So if it's, if there's 100, 150, 160 gigs, I'm not going to be too concerned about that at the moment. I was in the past, and that's why we're on a cloud dedicated hosting now. It was a problem at one point. I realized we needed more. Anyway, so that makes sense, right? Though that's a couple hundred, maybe all our sites and the extra accounts and stuff, maybe a couple hundred gig. Why are we at like 396 gig of the 400, whatever it was? It was very close. We'll get to that answer in a second, but what's happening now, let's circle back. What's going on? Well, your server is just like a computer. When you get too many things installed on your computer, it would be the same with your phone or any kind of device. The system's only designed to manage so much. It only has so much memory, so much working memory, or RAM or whatever, and gigs and hard drive memory or whatever. And so there's a point where it's suddenly I'm out of memory. I can't do anything else. And what happens, especially with dynamic sites like WordPress, is there are dynamic things happening. There are scheduled tasks. There are things that are creating files or entries in a database automatically all the time. If you go to a website and that website, but one of the things we run into, and we just ran into this this past week, is we have clients that use Elementor, and sometimes this has happened multiple times. I'll get like, we can't save. We can go in, we can do edits, but we can't save it. There's an error of some kind. And oftentimes that is a memory problem. So it's because they can't save, and it would be the same trying to create a new post. You can't do it because there's no more room for it. So that was kind of what was happening here. What was happening is we were so maxed out that these domains, these websites were struggling. So when I was trying to log in and it was trying to create a log of that or whatever it was doing behind the scenes, it just wasn't going to happen. It was just hanging up. So it wasn't loading. And so why? Why did that happen? So what happened? So this is what's really crazy about it, because like I said, we shouldn't be at that maxed out 400. And if someday we need to, I will, increase the memory on the server or whatever I need to do, but we should, it's important. It's important to have a limit because then it gives you an excuse to clean things up once in a while. Right. But what was happening was that, so Liquid Web comes back to me with a readout of our biggest files. And oftentimes, if you know anything about this stuff, oftentimes that is backup files. Backup files are a nightmare. They are a nightmare for me and other system admins I know. They can get out of control. Now, things can be saved. A backup of a site, basically you're making a clone of the site or parts of the site. So on a WordPress site, you can break it into, you backup themes, you backup plugins, you backup core, and other files. But you can break those out, or you can do it all at once. You don't always have to back up core. Sometimes you're just backing up themes and plugins. Depends on what you're doing, right? There's also server backups, which I also have on this server. So I have local backups, sort of, and then I have server backups. So I'm doubly protected. But those local backups. Now, what I mean by local is it's saving it to that website's file directory, right? And so somewhere it's going to be in the WP content, probably WP content. Yeah, I should know this. I've only been working with WordPress for 20 years. I don't know why I'm questioning myself live on this, not live, but recording this. WP content / there's themes, there's plugins, but then there's also, like, if you use Updraft Plus, those are backup files or cache directories, and all kinds of things can be in there. Uploads. And but there was a folder I've seen in there, but I wasn't super familiar with it. But that particular folder directory, what was it called? I don't know what it's called. It was like an acronym. But that had the files, these big files. And now here's the craziest thing. It was not only the number of files, and it was across multiple websites, multiple installs. There was a few actually on stage demos as well that were pointed out. But there was a lot of normal ones, and then there was a number of really big ones. For some reason, and I have not found this out yet, I'm going to try to. There was a number that were like 30 gig. 30 gig backup. On sites that are, 5 gig, 4 gig, 2 gig. There's something not quite right there. And so I don't know what those were, but we removed those. And I removed those. I went in and just removed all of these backups. We don't need those backups because we have other backups, because we have a routine of other things going on. We use Updraft Plus. We got server backups. I just purged all of those big backups and a number of other ones. And so, but it still took a while. Like, I think the, server was freaked out, but it finally, late last night or mid evening, it all settled down, and I stopped getting pings, and life is waking up this morning on a Sunday. Life is back to normal, and we cut it in half. Now we're at like 52%, which is fine. There's this memory problem is, I work with one of our agencies. I worked a lot with this system admin that they have that's been with them for several years. And we always, he's always having problems with memory. And he's got a different setup though. He's got stuff on Amazon and on Amazon servers, AWS, and uses those servers. So he manages it like down to the core, down to the nuts and bolts, and it can get very costly. when you're doing it that way, which they've found. And so memory is always in the conversation. And we had an instance where they gave us like we in the beginning, the first couple of years worked with them, we were just doing large projects and all this. We're just you know, we do most stuff we do is more technical back end or a lot of just building features and tools and WordPress backend stuff. They got a good front end team. Anyway, but what they had given us this past year, they decided they have like 10 sites on WordPress that they needed help maintaining. And so, of course, that's our thing. So, yeah, sure, we'll handle those for you. And but he had his own idea how he wanted to make backups and stuff. And I remember he wanted to use something called WP Toolkit that's in like every cPanel nowadays. It's called WP Toolkit, yeah. And so we're going to use WP Toolkit and we're going to back it up using that tool. And instead of using like Updraft Plus to do our backups, even though he has server backups, he's got server backups, but a daily, backs up the site. But when we're doing maintenance, we're hyper careful. So we do our own backups as well of critical things. And so if we need to revert quick or we need to, whatever, we want to have our own thing. But we had that conversation about memory, and it was like, okay, we'll only keep 1 or 2 backups, and on each site, and et cetera, et cetera. And what ends up happening is his client site starts having problems. And what was going on was I don't remember how bad this was. So it was basically we were creating the backups in the cPanel. WP Toolkit. We were making this is funny now. this was not funny for him at all. But we were making our backups, and then his server backups were backing up not only everything, all the files, database, all that, but also our backups. So it was like backing up the backups. So it was like just these huge backups. And so we can't do that. Now we actually do use Updraft Plus, and we're only backing. We don't like there's things like the uploads folder or directory. You don't need to back that up. Well, you can back it up on the schedule, but you don't need to back it up when you're updating a site necessarily. I mean, that's not something that's going to. You're not updating the uploads. But anyway, so we've kind of figured that out. It's still a little bit in the conversation, but it's important. Memory on your server is super important. You may not have a server, as robust as mine or others. You may have just a small site. You might only have a gig. Maybe you just have a landing page. It's like, super small, but you still should have some kind of backup system and things like that. But you also have to know that you're getting web hosting that can support that. And memory can be a very, very big issue in all kinds of aspects. Hey, I'm uploading a plugin, and for some reason it's telling me I don't have enough memory to upload my plugin. Well, it's because there's PHP settings that control how much you can upload and how much time delays, and there's all kinds of things to worry about there in those departments. But the thing about it is, so what do I do now? So in our teams, in what we do, routines are really important. Processes are really, really important. Processes and routines are like everything, right? But backups, we have a culture of backups. All right. I encourage backups like no tomorrow. And I think most of my devs are, we operate on nervousness, like paranoia. We're going to be like, even when I'm working on something, even if I'm working on a file, I might do an all copy and paste that into a different window or editor. And while I'm tweaking this one file, doing that type of thing even if you could back up, undo changes, I want to make sure I have the original copy. Backing up things is super important. So anytime we're doing maintenance, anytime we're working on a site, creating a new feature, we want to make backups. We want to at least make sure they're there, right? And so it's nothing technically my team's done wrong with these backups. I'm not sure about that 30 gig. There was like 4 of them. But it's not, it's part of what we do for maintenance. So when we like we have a variety of different scenarios, and like the agency I was talking to that's on WP Engine, we're doing, when we do updates to their sites, we actually pull everything, pull everything into push or pull into staging. And then we do our updates, and we push that back to the production. So there's a process there. But while that's happening, WP Engine is making those backups for us. So even if we push something, we had a situation where somebody forgot to tell us that they created some new landing pages. We pushed the updates, and the landing pages disappeared. That was not good. It was not good. But luckily we had a backup. So what ended up happening in that case, they made the decision to, let's restore the backup. Now their site's out of date again. We'll repull that and redo the updates and QA and all that. It is what it is. But we were able to rectify that because we had the backups. It's the same in every other environment. If you're doing, sometimes though, like with the one I was just talking about with the system admin, we do those updates in production. That's a little different. We have complete faith in our backups. It's just a different environment, different type of RSA agreement, or they don't have a lot of room in their RSA agreements for maintenance. So we don't do, like, our whole thing is that, right? Like when we have a maintenance agreement or web development, RSA, retained services agreement, that's all the room is for maintenance. So we can go above and beyond and have stagings and Git and whatever else we need. But yeah, so there's nothing there. When we're serving with our clients, partners, everything, if you ever use our services, just know that, we are a culture of backups. But what happens? Things can happen. The other thing here is also knowing you have those layers of support. Often, sometimes like agencies we work with, they know their stuff too. So they may try to, fix a problem. And then depending on what the problem is, they might pull in their system admin or whoever they got, or maybe they go to the web host, but then sometimes it falls on us. They bring in the tech geeks in the back end to really troubleshoot those real hardcore problems. But having a good support system is really important. I don't care who you are, if you got a website, make sure, test the support, see what the response times are, see how they deal with things. You'll know after a few problems, if they're not solving the problems or they're causing more problems. I have some, nightmare stories over time. I remember one time, like I was working with, I think it was Bluehost. I remember I was working. Now we're web developers. I just pull them in like I did Liquid Web this weekend for extra support, just for extra insights and, to work with them. But they started like doing updates and stuff to the site. I'm like, wait. What are you doing? They were like digging in, like making changes, and it was very strange. I'm like, that is not what you do. Maybe that's what you do for your other clients, but that is not what you do here. And so every time I would deal with them from that, actually eventually moved them off and went to Nexus. That's a whole story. But I would, every time I would talk to him, I said, don't do anything. That's where I start. Don't do anything. I do that with my team sometimes. Like, nothing actionable here. Because sometimes things can be interpreted like, oh, Matt wants me to go do this. No, I just want to tell you, or I just need you to do some R&D or something. Anyway, so communication is really important, and making sure you have those things in place. If you don't have an internal team that can dig into things or has some technical knowledge, be able to fix problems, troubleshoot things, even work on the server, like, obviously the benefit of me having an web design and development agency is that, we can take care of a lot of stuff ourselves. So, but having the additional support of managed servers is really important. And it depends on the size of the company and what, their tech teams are and all that stuff. They might be running their own servers. But most of what we do and for our own sites are managed. I want peace of mind. But the biggest thing here, and this is going to be kind of where the lesson lands. That all happened. Now, typically on the weekends, Matt's around, and I'm going to be solving a lot of my own problems, and just like I did with this, and for our stuff, and that's fine, right? If it was like late at night and I knew my team was coming in, I'd be like, "Hey guys, can you help me with this?" But it was me. I was going to solve it. But here's the thing. So the problem was this massive amount of backups had piled up. Now that's going to be there's a number of reasons for that. I know particularly, I might even know the person that these backups are coming from, but we're not going to go there. So basically backups are made when you're updating a site or you're migrating something or whatever. But there's also can be automated backups, and Updraft Plus, the Pro version, premium version that we use, and what we usually have going on, there's a way to schedule that. But the difference is that, so I configured Updraft Plus to make a maximum of 2 backups, or save a maximum of 2 backups, unless there's a reason to go beyond that. So the last 2 backups, and it might be, oftentimes it'll be like, okay, update, back up the database once a day, back up files once a week, Sunday mornings, 1 a.m., something like that. So the database is getting backed up more regularly, and then the files get periodic. But it depends on how often you're updating content, things like that. That's all going to go into that decision. And like I said, and then you schedule it. And I, generally speaking, recommend and do use a remote place to put those files. So what it'll do is it'll make one backup, a temporary backup, and then push all of that to a remote location, and then delete those local backups on the server. So the server, there's a little bit of time frame there where there's backups, but then they go away because they're on, we use Dropbox, but you can also use Drive. There's other services you can use. That way it doesn't affect your server. You still got to pay for that other service, obviously, but for us, that works out really well. So, but at least, one of the sites in particular had, I don't even know how many backups. There was like, and this is on the server in a directory for Updraft Plus. It had 100. I don't even know what it was. It was a lot because it took a long time to delete them. It was like, I don't know I don't know if that's going to translate at all to audio. I'm looking at myself. Okay, so think of a file list. If you ever deleted a lot of files and the scroll bar gets bigger over time, your geeks out there will know what I'm talking about. But there was a lot, and what probably is going on there is a schedule that's not scheduling it, not remote, and it's scheduling it locally on the server. And all of these are just piling up. So that's part of the problem, but there was a completely different tool being used to back up these sites, a different migration tool. And that's what those 30 gig ones are. I don't know what's going on there, but that's going to be a conversation. So the big takeaway here, though, is that the team is doing nothing wrong overall, right? The process is sound. I would rather we have this type of issue happen and know that my team is backing up, and maybe too much, maybe we set something wrong, whatever, but there's backups, right? I'd rather know that and then be like, okay, so the question to my team is going to be, first of all, I'm going to tell my team what happened. And this often happens, even if it's something I solve, I will drop it into Slack and be like, hey, this is what happened, FYI. We had a problem with a WooCommerce. Oh, it was actually one of our bigger clients. They have a WooCommerce site and they use coupons, and they had like a large down payment for their product, like $300, but for some reason, like the last like 12, 15, they sent, that's what they sent me. They're like, these are $99 down payments, which was the monthly after that. So it was a $300 down payment and like 3 payments of $99. But the first payment was suddenly $99. And then the discount they have is off of that. And it was just like, what's weird. So I don't want to go into this whole story, but basically I did some troubleshooting. I don't know if it was on a evening or weekend or what it was, or my team was just busy with other stuff. I just handled it, did some troubleshooting, found out that it was a WordPress update, and for whatever reason, broken WooCommerce subscriptions plugin and the coupon functionality somewhere in there. So it was WC subscriptions was the problem. Technically, but it was them patching something that WordPress did. So all I had to do was go in and after I figured that out and update WooCommerce subscriptions, it was patched and went back to normal. But in that case, the reason I'm telling you that, in that case, I go back to Slack and I said, this is what happened, FYI, if you run into it. And it's not just that thing. Oh, they're on, maybe they're working on other stuff and they see the same problem. It's seeing how that problem was solved, and that type of problem can happen. So I'm not only teaching that moment, but I'm also teaching the troubleshooting and the problem solving aspect of it. Like, if anything like this happens, this is the type of thing this is what could be the reason. There's a conflict. There's something going on there. And it's the same exact thing with this thing. Like, okay, so number one, why do we have 30 gig? They may not have a good reason. I don't know why. I don't know why that happened. And then, just saying, okay, we need to make sure that, that this is how Updraft Plus is configured. This is what can happen otherwise. And just a general lesson of being conscious of memory in general, that we're respecting those limits and making sure that backups are either temporary or they're whatever, and then we manage and remove those things. It can happen. I mean, like I have found like random zip files in the WP content folder directory because somebody made a backup, and that's where they put it. Just not even using a tool. It was just a zip. But those things and that's why there's tools, there's, ways to look, even in cPanel, WHM, to see, the size of directories and things like that, and identify those things, or run things, command line or whatever to find those things. That's probably what, that's why I go to Liquid Web, because I know they'll be able to just do that for me. And so it becomes a lesson, in tech. The reason why, I don't know if I should make this an AI conversation, but I don't know that AI is going to replace us anytime soon, just because in tech, it's like there's always going to be problems, and you need the ability to, you need the experience to go backwards and know your craft and know what I've seen these things. I've seen this happen before automatically. Oh, that's where my brain goes. But even if AI is coding a site, there's still going to be bugs. There's still going to be things that happen. There's so many moving parts, especially in a WordPress site, that you need to know how to, look at logs and do the troubleshooting you need to do to get to the bottom of that. But like you said, experience, or like I said, experience is critical too. We're Unified Web Design. If you work with us, you need, you have us, bring us on board to help you with your maintenance. You're not just getting our processes. So that's valuable too, right? A lot of times, you hear this with people that, I don't know if they sell coaching or they sell whatever they're selling, right? Whatever service, you're oftentimes not buying the service itself. You're buying the process behind the service, right? The way they do things. And when somebody purchases maintenance from us, they're not just getting, we're going to have somebody to update our plugins. No, you're getting somebody that not only has good, solid processes to make sure that we're doing it right, and we have good backups, and can revert and can alert you of things or fix bugs, but we also have that background of experience in all kinds of different environments. I would say that we're even a little bit more valuable in the fact that, kind of like the two things we do, like two things we focus on: maintenance and custom. Custom being building custom websites, building custom features, any customizations, or dealing with other people's customizations. I had somebody recently ask me, they said, Matt, we have this, I don't know if it's a plugin, but we have this, are you able to reverse engineer this custom code? And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of, we inherit, just because we focus on custom, we tend to inherent, I can't talk today, inherent, you know what I mean. I need more coffee. Inherit custom builds, custom sites. We get them from others, and we build them ourselves. So we kind of know, we know code a little bit more than maybe others. But it's our wheelhouse. And when somebody's doing stuff or we're doing stuff for them, or they hire us to do things, whether that's in a one-time basis or monthly retainers or whatever, they're getting a team that's been there, done that, and seen a lot of things. been in a lot of battles, a lot of wars, even down to battling, hacks and hackers, and from the security side of things, it's, been there, done that. And we always see things new. That doesn't mean we don't see new things, but at the core, like back to the process, what's important is not what happens, but it's the process behind it and how you deal with what happens. That sounds like a quote. It's not what happens to you, it's how you deal with what happens. But it's really that, right? It's this outlined SOP based process that you have. Like if that happens. So like when that happened to me this weekend, and I was assessing what was happening. I'm going back to my memory banks that are probably telling me some story, like this is what's happened in the past. and then, oh, it's two websites. That means it's not probably a hacker. I suppose they could hack both sites at the same time, have the same issue. It's probably not that, though. It's probably server based. It's probably something turns out to be memory. But that's a big thing. But yeah, the big thing is just we learn those lessons. We onboard those lessons so you don't have to, right? You go out, if you're in business, you go out, you take care of your marketing, your sales, building products, selling products, services, whatever you do. Bring somebody on board like us, like a team, an agency that, or just a freelancer that if it's a small site or a small operation, bring on who you can afford to offload that and have somebody competent to be. I'm glad I was able to say that word. Inherent. Why can't I say inherent? Why can't I say that today? I've never had problems with that word. Oh no. It's the first signs. Okay. Yeah, so that's where we're going to land. I hope you found this interesting. I love creating this kind of podcast, especially a solo episode when something's so fresh like that. And that's what I like to do. I've always liked to do, and how I like to teach is from lessons from the trenches. That's what we're here for, right? Anyway, I hope your site's doing well this weekend or this week, whenever you're listening to this. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions or you have any issues, and maybe it's a particular issue, and Matt, have you seen this? Well, don't do that too often, especially if it's critical. I don't check if it's on LinkedIn or something. I only pop in there once a day or every other day. We have somebody watching it, but anyway, but if you have a question about getting help, if you're curious to know what kind of help can I get and how much would that cost, where are the options out there? And even if you didn't go with us, at least what to expect out there and how to get help. It's every situation, every business is different, right? You have different budgets for sure, and can get different types of help based on that budget. But also you may have different needs, different things that are important to you as a business. And hopefully your website's important to you, especially if you're not getting just traffic off the street, walking into some brick and mortar shop. You're probably care about traffic, either building leads, making sales. The bigger your site, the more sales you have. One of the things I was referencing, one of the clients I was referencing earlier, was related to the WooCommerce thing, WooCommerce subscriptions. That's a big business. It's a multi-million-dollar operation. They get probably hundreds of sales a day, something along those lines. So if in that case, they can invest, a little bit more in ensuring those servers are up and that Matt's always there. The owner's like, I just want to, even though I try to get them to use other systems, support center will use our ticket system. He's like, if anything critical happens, I'm getting that direct email. And that's fine. That's great. I digress again. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed this. Until next time, take care of yourself. That's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already and give us a thumbs up if we deserve it. Now a word from our sponsor, my agency, Unified Web Design. We build custom websites, features, we maintain websites, we work with agencies to fulfill their web design and development needs, and more. If you're interested in our services or are looking for an agency to work with as a partner to build awesome sites for your clients, feel free to reach out to me at unifiedwebdesign.com. There's a handy contact me link at the top. Fill out that form and it will open a ticket, and that ticket will find its way to me. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.